Don't forget to check out the Hockey Podcast Network's newest affiliate, NHLShop.com. That's right, the official NHL merchandise page. Right now, they're giving 20% off orders over $25 with code NHLICE25. Also, if you use our link that we're going to tweet out after this episode, you can help support us and the other hosts at the Hockey Podcast Network.
This is the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk on every team in the NHL.
Welcome to Offside by a Mile, the podcast for anything and everything Colorado Avalanche, and the official Avs podcast for the Hockey Podcast Network. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final episode of the season-ish, whatever. Do we want to call it the end of the season, Jared?
I guess, yeah, yeah.
The end of the regular season, officially.
The regular season.
Yeah.
It was such a regular season out here.
Yeah, regular. The final episode of the first or inaugural season of the Offside by a Mile podcast is upon us. The Hockey Podcast Network as a whole has decided it's summertime for the most part for us. So we're going to take that. We're going to go enjoy some Sundays off of recording and enjoy some golf for Jared and Brett, maybe myself. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to enjoy some, more retired time while I'm laid off.
Retired time.
All that good stuff. It's been a blast. We just wanted to have one more episode. We had another guest we wanted to get on before we called it quits. But that being said, we will be back for playoffs. We will be back for season 2 of the Offside by a Mile podcast. We have some exciting stuff to come at you with next year. Obviously, we're jacked up about some Avs playoff hockey. I can't speak.
Playoffs.
Maybe
hockeys?
that's why I'm taking a break.
Regain my English.
Can't even say Offside by a Mile properly. But yeah, like a huge shout out to everybody who's joined us and listened to our episodes this year. It's been a blast. It's been fun growing with the network. But yeah, it's exciting to be at summer break time as well. With the amount of content we've had to put out without hockey being played, it's been tough. It's definitely been times have definitely been easier for us.
Yeah. I mean, going through the season, we'd watch 2 games and be like, oh, man, we got mountains of content here.
Obviously, with what's going on, too, around the States and around the world, there's that. Again, hope everybody's staying safe in Denver and area and everywhere else where you're listening from. But, couple things before we get to our final Across Quarantine edition. As the people who follow us on Twitter have been noticing, the Cale Makar arguments and the Quinn Hughes arguments are in full force. And
I love it.
I and Jared and all of us need to stand up for Cale Makar because this is bullshit. Everybody with the Quinn Hughes comments and the points arguments driving me nuts. The points arguments of just straight up
that's
being
the worst one.
Like, oh, he's got 3 more points. He must be the rookie of the year. Fuck that.
In a season where we're talking about point percentage.
like, oh my God.
Cale Makar's
point
percentage. Yeah.
Especially the fact that Makar has more goals and stuff. And it's just like, can we
There's
not?
so many arguments for Cale Makar over Quinn Hughes.
Like, again, there's a lot of arguments for Quinn Hughes. This is a close race.
It is.
It is a legitimate race. It's not Connor McDavid versus Panarin or something. Like, this is not the argument.
Yeah.
They're both young, very young. They're both it's not Panarin was a rookie at 24 years old. That was old.
Right.
These guys are same age basically. Like it's crazy. It's amazing. It's 2 defensemen having a battle for this the Calder Trophy, all that stuff. However, if you want to be entertained, follow our Twitter account, watch our arguments with the Hockey Podcast Network hosts, whatever it may be. But for now, like I think that's the main topic of hockey conversation for us when it comes to Avalanche news is what's going to happen with all the NHL awards. Obviously, people are having the argument on whether or not McKinnon should be winning the Hart, which again, I think he's the runner-up. I think he is the Quinn Hughes of the Hart Trophy. I think there is an obvious choice for the Hart, and I believe it's Draisaitl.
It's hard to argue against, right?
For like a guy that outscores McDavid. Yes, they're on the same team, and if you want to go with valuable, then it's hard. It's if you want to go by strict definition, like we talked about last week, sure, McKinnon definitely has a legitimate shot.
Mm-hmm.
However, Draisaitl had a phenomenal year. He scored a crazy amount of points in the games he played. He deserves it, 100%. I believe that's fair.
Yeah.
Cale Makar, we've said it a million times. I believe he is the man. I believe he's the man for the Hart, for the Calder. And then, like we said last week, Joe Sakic, GM of the Year.
And yeah,
running away with it.
Still, like recapping everything that he's done for the team.
Like, we didn't even touch on Kadri.
Yeah,
week.
right. Because we talked about it after we stopped recording.
We didn't even touch on the Kadri trade.
Yeah, like
that was
a big blockbuster trade that lots of question marks, and we've seen throughout the year that was a huge pickup.
Right,
massive
so
pickup.
It's all that, and it's just. I don't know what we're gonna see out of the NHL when it comes to the awards. We don't know. They haven't even figured it out themselves. I've seen some stuff in Canadian media where it's like the NHL might kind of roll it out baseball style, where it's kind of like one a day, like one trophy a day, kind of leading up to like the return of sports or return.
Which I feel that'd probably be a good idea.
It'd be kind of a cool way to hype stuff up. Yeah, and if that's the case, then we're probably looking at July by finding out like Cale Makar is Rookie of the Year. And there's a lot of days between now and then to discuss the Makar versus Quinn Hughes argument. And I feel like we're on the right side. I think I can't remember who it was that shared that 18 voters picked Makar for the Calder and all that stuff, the article that was on the THPN post, the poll there. Before anybody goes nuts that was following that poll on Twitter, there's a lot of Vancouver fans that are THPN fans just because that's where THPN originated, was Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So that's probably part of why the poll is skewed. And it's not even skewed. It's 52% Quinn Hughes last time I checked, right? Like it was tight. It should be tight.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see the right coin flip.
I think so, too.
Come up on that one, but we still have to wait. And how long we wait is up in the NHL's hands. And
we're just join the rest of the list of shit we're waiting for.
Just like the draft lottery, they're probably going to fuck it up. Obviously, they're not going to have an award show like they normally do. So they literally have free reign on doing basically any sort of results reveal.
Yeah, just grab some people for some video interviews.
It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun though. I think it's gonna be a better awards. I don't know what the word is, presentation than we've ever seen, because the award show is awful.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty bland and meh.
They try and bring some sort of comedian to host it, and it's just not good. It's just not.
Yeah, it never really pans out to high quality entertainment.
Right. So I don't know. I think this will be a fun one, but
It'll be something different. So
I think it's gonna be fun because we're gonna have Makar to cheer on.
Yeah.
All that good jazz. So, but yeah. So I don't know. Any final thoughts, Jared, before we get into our interview here about our first season in the Hockey Podcast Network?
Other than follow us on Twitter, Offside by a Mile. We will update. We're gonna, like Tyler already kind of said, we're gonna take a little bit of a hiatus here. Potentially a couple of weeks, potentially a month. We're not really sure yet. If we get some good news or some news in general, we'll come back, record an epi for the boys and the girls out there.
I think it's safe to say that us and the Stick and Rink podcast, which is the Vancouver affiliate of the Hockey Podcast Network, we will be having an episode when and if the results come out on this this Calder Trophy.
Yeah, I
voting.
feel like that'd be a good.
I feel like that's a guarantee.
We haven't talked to them this year either, so
now, then is as good as time as any for sure. When that news comes out, we'll definitely be having a chit chat about it. When training camps come back, I believe we're kind of penciling in like a week before training camp. We'll probably release an episode and then go weekly from there. I know in our heads we're definitely thinking like multiple episodes a week again once games legitimately start happening. We've been chatting for an hour without hockey content. I think it's gonna be.
We're gonna be so hyped.
We're gonna be so hyped to talk about hockey
when there's hockey back, man. We'll be here. We'll be here.
So don't worry about that. But I really hope you guys return and keep watching, keep listening to the boys here at Offside by a Mile.
And the rest of the network too, man. There's so many good podcasts out there. We were kind of talking about that last night and stuff. Like there's some great podcasts out there, like Tales with TRs, just banging every time.
Crushing.
We got like the Fourth Line. What else? Like the Two Hockey Ladies, man.
Yep.
Like there's some great podcasts out there. And then Leovold with Heroin to Hockey, really interesting listen. I've listened to a couple of those over the past week, and super interesting stuff, and just really cool to hear about all these different aspects of hockey and the hockey life. So make sure you support the rest of the network too, because man, we got content pumping out left and right here, and when hockey's on, we're going to be going full force. So cheers. It's been super fun year here, and we picked the right team. We picked the right team.
We definitely picked a
fucking nailed it.
Beautiful team to support and to host and to follow.
It's been fun.
The fandom I have acquired and created of the Avs has just blown all expectations out of the water.
Yeah.
Covering this team has been a blast. For anybody who is a diehard Avs fan, I hope we do them justice, and if we don't, please let us know. Please tell us what we can do better at.
Yeah.
It's been a blast. And speaking of fantastic talent that the Hockey Podcast Network has, our guest this week on Across the Quarantine is the newest host for the Hockey Podcast Network, the new host of the New Jersey Devils affiliate podcast, Neil Villapiano, as apparently I say correctly.
Nailed it.
It's great. Here's the interview coming right up, and please enjoy, and we will see you soon. All right, the hopefully final edition of Across the Quarantine comes to you today with a very special guest, the newest member of the Hockey Podcast Network, Neil Villapiano. I don't know. That's probably super wrong. Is that right?
Everybody in this network has gotten my last name right, and I find that to be incredible.
I just read it like it's spelled. It's not.
No, thank you, and that's what you're supposed to do. But like,
it's like my last name. People get mine wrong, and I'm like, dude, it's Jussenberger. That's it.
Yeah. But like people in other podcasts for other sports events, they screw it up, or like I get emails or mail that spell my name wrong, and I'm like, it shouldn't take you this long to figure out. But Tyler, I appreciate the fact that you said it right.
Nice.
Thank you.
I just totally guessed. I went as white as possible, and it worked.
There you go.
Anyway, Neil is the new host of the New Jersey Devils affiliate podcast. Just ramble. Go for it. Introduce your podcast.
Sure. So my name is Neil Villapiano, as you can see on the screen, and I am the host of the Devils State of Mind podcast. So that is the new official Devils podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, and I'm really excited to join the network and just be a part of it. I've already gotten to know a lot of guys like yourselves, and I feel like I've been here like the whole time just because of how great you guys have been, and how welcoming. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to talking Devils hockey. We certainly have a lot to talk about going into this offseason that we now officially know that it's an offseason.
Yeah, when you talk about silly season being the offseason, the New Jersey Devils and the Detroit Red Wings are probably the two teams that look forward to it the most.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that realistically, when I was looking at how they were saying the 2014 playoff before it was actually announced, I said, I don't think they'll get in, but like I can at least hope that maybe somehow we slipped in by accident. But now that like it's official that we're not in it and we have an offseason, it's like, okay, now the organization can focus on the draft lottery and just preparing themselves for that and not have to worry about playing a couple extra games, whether they get it, whether they make the playoffs or they don't. So that's kind of the positive, I guess I would say from that. But it still sucks nonetheless, because if we had beaten the Penguins at home, which we usually do, and that was one of the few times that Pittsburgh actually beat the Devils at the Prudential Center, we would have jumped over, I think, Montreal and gotten into the last spot. But didn't happen, and now we're in the off season.
Yeah.
Well, you guys get to be excited about the 2014 playoff.
We've talked about this at length, it seems. I'm not super jacked up by the 2014 playoff format. Like, I know that it had to be more than 16 teams. I'm not one of those people that's like straight up against the extra teams being in the play-in. I'm not. That's just like the end of the season is a huge time for teams to get hot and go on a run. That is, you cannot argue that. Teams do that and win the cup. Like, teams get hot late and win cups. The LA Kings did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7th place seed or whatever they were.
I think they were 8.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah,
they were 8, and who did they beat in that year?
the Devils.
Yeah. Just pour lemon juice on the wound while you're at it.
Super accidental, I swear. But like, I don't like the fact that the games are meaningful right off the hop. But at the same time, I didn't want them to play regular season or exhibition games. That would have been awful too. That would have been a waste of time. So it's weird. I liked some of the other suggestions better, but it is what it is. It's what we got. That's all we got to deal with. And to be honest, I want hockey back, and that's all I really care about. So the Avs are going to crush, and we're going to be fine. Right.
I mean, right. I can't really argue it that much. I mean, the Avalanche, like a handful of other teams, I think is a playoff team. I think that the chemistry that they have and the core that they have is capable of it. And the fact that there are going to be no fans is going to be an advantage and a disadvantage, I think, to every team that's in it, because you're going to have games that you're going to have. I mean, let's face it, we are going to see some upsets. I don't think that we can't deny. I don't think we can deny the fact.
You can't go into this playoff series or season or whatever you want to call it and expect no upsets after what we saw last year.
That too, yeah.
Last year was upset heaven, like almost every series.
Yeah, right? No, it was crazy every single one. I think the one that stands out the most, I guess, to me was, San Jose coming back from 3-1 against Vegas, being down 3-0 in Game 7 at home, and then score 4 in a row, and then end up winning it at overtime. I mean, it was like the craziest finish, and that was the opening round. That wasn't like the conference finals. That was the first round, and then they had to play 2 more.
If you like the biggest difference between hockey and basketball is like playoff wise is the first round. Hockey, the first round is the best round. Basketball, the first round might as well not even happen.
A lot of the time, right?
Right? Like it's just like it's a waste of time. Right? Where hockey, man, like you have 8 series running, so you got 4 a day.
Right.
And it's just like it's must-watch TV every single game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
no,
there's
the
no
start.
series where you look at it and you're like, wow, that's a upset. Like you're like, that's just, well, Tampa Bay versus Columbus, you're like, wow, Tampa Bay is going to crush. And you're like, oh, they just lost 4-0.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was great. That was so much. I was laughing after every game because I'm like, Columbus is really going to sweep Tampa. Like, it's not even going to be close.
And it wasn't.
Weren't they down like 3-0 in the first period of Game 1?
Yeah, and then they just were like, actually, no, we're going to win now.
Well,
and if you go back, never look back.
If you go back to John Tortorella's like speech in this first intermission, he was like dropping F-bombs and saying like, are we really here just to get our ass kicked in 4 games to go home, or are we here to win and actually make a run? And they ended up proving it. And they made Tampa Bay pretty much the laughing stock of the NHL from last season. And I think,
100%.
I mean, they go into this playoff, and I think what would be lovely, and I don't know how possible this could be, but if Columbus could get past Toronto, which, it could happen. Honestly, it could happen. I would love to see Columbus in the second round, or I guess you'd say the first official round, would play Tampa Bay in like that rematch and just be like,
and I think that's actually possible.
It's very possible because just with like just the way the reseed is going to happen now that we know that's official too, right?
Which we were really kind of pledging for. Which
like I really wanted the reseed after the play-in round.
It's
I don't
crazy.
think they needed to do it after every round. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy they're doing it every round. That's going to change around
chaos,
a lot.
Honestly.
Like
we're asking for a lot of weird series, like series where you'd say there's a lot of stacked talent, and then you look at others and you'd say, I don't know how this is going to end up going.
Yeah, so like we kind of talked about it when the reseed news got announced, and it was just like the NHL just never can find a way to like happy medium stuff. They just it's got to go like full one way or full the other way.
Right.
But like again, talking about the meaningful games and stuff right off the bat. There was Tampa Bay had the same discussion, right? Like that's why Killorn said that Tampa Bay voted no against the current 2014 format was because they felt that those round robin games between the top four in the conferences weren't going to be as meaningful as the play-in series with all the other 16 teams, right? And then all of a sudden the NHL's like, actually though, your seed from that round robin is going to be hella important because it's going to set up your entire playoff.
Right.
Yeah, not just next series. It's
not just the next
every
one.
series.
Every series.
Right. So it's going to be different every single time. And I think that that's going to give every team the extra motivation for all of these games, even for the top four teams that are going to be playing, I guess, like, what is it, 3 games? And then that determines the seeding, or 4? So it's going to be every game. They pretty much said, the NHL pretty much said, we are going to literally make every single game as important as, game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, let's just put pure chaos. I'm sure Gary Bettman was laughing saying, you do realize what we're going to be asking of these teams, right? And everybody's like, yep.
Yeah.
So
and I think part of the reseeding, I think part of why they went with the reseeding the way they went is because a team like Montreal, hypothetically, if Montreal does beat Pittsburgh, they will be playing the highest seed until they're out.
Yeah.
And that is the best way to make sure that the Montreal Canadiens don't win the Stanley Cup.
I mean, yeah,
so
same goes.
Is that why a team like Toronto is going to have to play the lowest seed every single round so that they can try to help them win the cup?
I don't think so. Because like the thing is with being an 8, like being the 8 seed is what the Leafs are. In theory, you're going to be the low seed more often than not.
Right.
Assuming upsets aren't just everywhere.
Every series.
Right.
Right. So like I just the Leafs they're in such a shitty spot.
Right.
So like
I have a couple teams that for different reasons that I want to see win. Like as a Devils fan and knowing the situation with ours when it comes to the conditional picks, we obviously want Arizona and Vancouver to win their play-in round so that we can get their first round picks. So we could have 3 in this year's draft, which would be
fantastic.
Ideal. So
yeah,
sure. I know Isha's not going to be happy that I don't want Minnesota to win. But
he is not unhappy regardless of that series win because being a huge Nucks fan personally and then covering the Minnesota Wild, it's going to be hard for him. He just needs that series to be over.
Right. He's like, I don't care. Just whoever gets past, let's just get past it and move on with my life.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. And I mean, I also would love to see like, I would really like to see Columbus just once again give us some team to laugh at, and I think Toronto would be even more perfect than Tampa last year because it's Toronto and everybody's saying this is Toronto's year. They're going to win the cup like they say every other year, and then it doesn't happen, and then they say the team sucks. Everyone should be traded.
Fireball.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for Columbus to win in 3 so that someone says I think Austin Matthews should be traded. I'm waiting for that.
And that will come. Especially if he doesn't score.
Yeah.
And I'm loving Edmonton Oilers fans going, we really have to play Chicago.
Dude,
of all the teams you decided to have us play against, you want us to go up against Chicago.
Yeah.
There is not a better series from a just hockey fan perspective. Well, sorry, that's probably biased from us, being that we're Calgarians and obviously hate the Oilers across the board. There is nothing more fun than watching them get matched up against the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs.
Because
Yes,
they
it's
know,
a perfect
they know
storm.
what's going to happen.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
not the real playoffs, but it's just about.
It's
and
just the
oh
perfect.
goddamn, it would be so funny
Oh,
if they
it's
lost.
going to be, and like, you know, another team I'd like to see, and I know that some people are not going to be happy, but like, I would like to see Montreal pull up an upset, but my only problem with it is this. I don't want to even give the Penguins any sort of chance that they could possibly get the first overall pick. Because if they somehow, with the 3% chance that they actually have, if they don't make it out of the play-in round, get Lafreniere, I mean, I can't think of a better situation to say, how is this not rigged? You are literally trying to help a team that doesn't need any more help.
That same statement can be said about the Oilers as well.
Exactly.
True.
But what is it? No, but here's the thing with the Oilers. How far have they gotten since they got Hall, who is not even with them anymore, Draisaitl, McDavid, every single goaltender that they tried to bring in since 2006.
Hey, don't forget Yakupov and Puljujärvi.
Yakupov. I mean, there are people that are saying like Jack Hughes is the worst first overall pick in NHL history, and I'm like, I think Neil Yakupov would have something to
he
say.
still plays in the NHL. He is far from the worst.
Bad.
Right. But it's stuff like that.
He's not even the worst in the last 10 years because of Yakupov.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
Man.
But like, I just, that was the only thing about the whole format that I kind of disagreed when they said every team that gets knocked out of the qualifying round has like a 3% chance. I'm like, why are you even giving them a chance?
Well,
Like,
so
maybe
I don't think that's fair because of the fact that if you want to treat this as not the playoffs, which you should be treating the play-in rounds as not the playoffs, then every team that loses missed the playoffs. So they still have to have a shot. The problem I see with it is the fact that, A, we're going to know about it beforehand.
Right.
Right? Like on the 26th of June, right? I think that was the lottery date.
26, yep.
We're going to know if that first overall pick is going to a team that loses in the play-ins. We're going to know that.
Yeah.
We're not going to know who, but we're going to know that.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That
if,
is a weird thing.
if that fucking number comes up and it's a play-in team that gets first overall, shit is going to hit the fan so fucking hard.
I mean, I already saw that the Sabres, I think it was also the Devils, called the NHL offices, particularly Bill Daly, and said, the fact that you have a phase 2, if we get to that point, all hell is going to break loose.
Yeah.
You understand that, right? And they go, well, we're very sensitive to the teams that are not in it. Well, guess what? Those teams are going to be able to play a little bit, and they could also still get a top 3 pick. So what do the teams that are not playing get? And they're like, well, we may do a tournament. And I'm like, for what?
No player on any of the teams in the bottom 7 want to come back, do a 3-week training camp to play like a shitty, meaningless like tournament thing for fucking money. Like nobody, nobody wants to play that, and B, I don't think anybody wants to watch that.
Right. And for a team like, the Devils, we don't even have a full-time head coach yet. We don't have a full-time GM. We traded away everybody that had any sort of value at the deadline. You would have to ask us to call up like 4 or 5 people from our minor league team just to have enough to play.
You guys could have a rookie tournament.
Oh, it'd be great.
That might be watchable if you just straight up have like the bottom 7 have like a rookie tournament.
Look,
the problem is I'd like to see that.
Riley Walsh. I would like to see Riley Walsh play a little bit before, they make a decision on him. It's guys like that. But like the whole idea when they said we may do a tournament of the 7 teams, it's like, that's not going to make anybody feel better about the situation.
Yeah,
it's
agreed.
It's like, we're not going to play until like December probably, because if you're following the guidelines that like the NBA is doing, because the NBA basically said, we're not coming back for the 2020-21 season until December, the way you have your plans, even though you don't have specific dates, is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So the reality is that we are in June. You're asking us to wait another 6 months before any of these guys can play again.
Yeah. But it's New Jersey, and does anybody actually want to watch hockey for the next
here
6
we
months?
go. Here we go. The classic let's crap on New Jersey because everyone in the state likes doing this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that in Canada people like doing it too.
Hell yeah, we do.
I guess they also watched Jersey Shore and just got their assumptions from that as well.
Sorry, my wife watches Jersey Shore. I try to avoid that with like the plague, but it just it happens. Okay.
It's unfortunate that show was ever invented, but it is what it is. But look, us as Devils fans, we would have loved to have been in the 2014 playoff. Even if we didn't get past the play-in round, we would have been happy just to have played a couple more meaningful games before we go into the offseason. But the fact that there are certain guidelines that it feels like all 7 teams that didn't make it are getting doubly punished because not only are they not playing, but all the teams that get to be in the play-in round that get knocked out also have like a 3% chance of getting a pick and jumping that. Yeah. It's like we don't get a freaking say in this.
Yeah, I mean,
since we don't have Taylor Hall, we're definitely not getting the first pick this year.
No way. 0%.
We're definitely not getting it. Arizona will probably get it. If Arizona gets knocked out, they're getting the first overall.
Yeah, they probably will.
First of all, if that happens, if they somehow miss and their pick is the one that fucking hits first overall, I'm out. I can't. Like, the draft lottery doesn't exist. It's the Taylor Hall lottery. Period.
There'll just be everybody.
Taylor Hall has made the draft lottery his bitch. He has
Taylor Hall knows someone on the inside. If that is the case, like, no question.
No, because like they were like when it happened the first time, and he tweeted out like, "Oh, I must have this magical power." He then tweeted out again the same night when we go for it last year, and I'm like, if somehow this actually happens. Taylor Hall knows things that we don't know.
But wait. What if, hypothetically, it's not Arizona that picks first overall, but Taylor Hall signs with the team that does pick first overall? Maybe he knew beforehand and rigged it for the team he was going to. Then it's even more fucked up.
So I guess he'll get ready to move up to Buffalo then, because
he's gonna go to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's gonna get the first.
Why not? Yeah, right. He'll somehow go to Pittsburgh. He'll get the $9 million because somehow the Penguins will have enough cap space, and why not? Like it'll just be like fine.
And
I won't even boo him. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh well, here's a report that Taylor Hall may come back to New Jersey. I'm like, first of all. Our interim GM said the team is about 4 years away from being competitive. Taylor Hall specifically said he wants to be paid $9 million a year and also be in a playoff contender, which I've never ever seen happen in the history of hockey. Last time I checked, the Devils are not close to either one of them. Maybe the $9 million they could give him $10 million if they felt like it. But
I don't think Taylor Hall's getting 9.
No, he doesn't
be tough at this
deserve 9.
point, right?
He's 4 or 5 at the most.
It'll definitely be more than that, but it's like, man, I don't like with how he performed this year as a whole. Obviously, the big change to Arizona was not the greatest, but like, I understand NHL GMs are pretty dumb when it comes to free agency, right? Like it's. They will overspend almost across the board on the top guy. Panarin worked out so far.
True.
However, Bobrovsky not so much. Right? Taylor Hall, and we've all seen the free agency year of like Lucic and Neal and a bunch of those guys, right? Like that was
fun. That was fun.
That was rough, right? So it's just like somebody is going to make the mistake. Taylor Hall, we said it before, like when it was trade deadline time, Taylor Hall was open, and it was a thought that he was coming to Colorado. That was a
big one. We were, even Devils fans, we were like, because right before the trade deadline, the Devils were in Colorado, and we were thinking, okay, and he wasn't playing that night.
We were shitting our pants here.
We were like, okay, he's going.
We did not want Taylor Hall for a second on this podcast. Because he just didn't make sense. And it just didn't make sense for the assets you had to trade away. to have him for one season, and to sign him long term for big money was even more ludicrous. Like, it just did not fit our plans.
Who was Colorado's first round pick last year?
Bowen Byram.
Yeah, right. That was the guy that us as Devils fans, we kept saying, and every Avs fan was like,
hell no.
There is no way we are giving you Bowen Byram for Taylor Hall.
No.
It's not happening unless, and they were like, what's the unless? Unless he re-signs. And I'm like, I don't know if Colorado's cap situation would allow him to get the money that he would want.
It's a very, I'd say
it's in with that team.
It's definitely a similar situation to the New Jersey Devils cap situation, where there's money there right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's not money there in 4 years. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, by putting in that roadblock, it's gonna bump somebody else out.
We talked about it forever, and it was just like that right there. Taylor Hall is not worth potentially losing Bowen Byram for that trade or for free agency because you couldn't pay him or for whatever the situation, right? And it was just like, man, it just didn't make any sense to load up another forward on this huge offensive powerhouse that we had this year.
And like, exactly, with the pickups of Burakovsky and stuff.
If you had told me at the beginning of the season that Taylor Hall would have been traded to Arizona, I would have said, but why?
Why?
I'm not really trying to crap on the Arizona Coyotes, but I'm like, that's not a playoff team. I mean, like, I could, like, when they kept saying Colorado, I'm like, okay, from our standpoint, that makes sense because they're a playoff team. If
the
it wasn't
were there for sure.
Yeah, right. But then when I realized what Ray Shero, the former GM, was trying to get for Hall, especially because it was like a month before or 2 months before the deadline. It wasn't like we were at the trade deadline and we were at the last second and then we try to force someone. It was like, you had time, but you wanted like a first, I think a second, and they wanted also Bowen Byram. That's apparently what I heard was the deal. And I said, unless, because Taylor Hall is not at the level of a guy like Sidney Crosby or Ovechkin or McDavid or Matthews. He's not at that level. He's not a franchise player. And this is, I think, the way his agent and maybe also Taylor Hall saw himself at this point. It's like he saw himself as that last missing piece and as that franchise player. And I think a lot of
Taylor Hall is a star. He's not a superstar and he's not a franchise talent.
He's a star.
He's a star, 100%.
Right. And he really developed a lot by coming to New Jersey and really making a name for himself. And, you know, we have to give him the credit where credit is due. But I think for him going into this market, especially with the economic standpoint because of the coronavirus, the fact that he's still firm on, I don't want anything other than a long-term deal. I don't know who would give him that money considering how much money people have lost.
Yeah, that's why I don't see it happening either.
Yeah, and bringing up, you know, his next contract here, I don't think he has any, you know, clout to be picky. Because how can you? Like, what have you proven last 5 years even?
We've joked around the last couple of free agencies where you're like, maybe this isn't the best time to be a free agent. This free agency is definitely not the time to be a free agent.
It's going to be rough for people out there.
I mean, you have someone like an Alex Pietrangelo who there's a good chance he'll probably end up taking a 1-year deal with St. Louis just because of the fact that St. Louis, with the salary cap not going up that much, won't be able to afford him. And not a lot of teams, especially for a 30, 31-year-old defenseman, is going to feel comfortable giving him $8-9 million.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of players are going to have to take some respectable cuts. And especially like in like a Pietrangelo situation, if you want to be on a good team like St. Louis, you're probably going to have to take a cut.
Yeah.
And like it's shitty because you're the captain and you like he played himself into the role that he's in now. Mm-hmm. But it's just, you know, kind of shit end of the stick here. Like we don't even have the money.
Right.
So it's going to be tough. I mean,
nobody's going to make a huge amount of money. If everything was normal, then okay, we could start making our, you know, assumptions that, maybe, you know, Pietrangelo will sign a long-term big money deal with St. Louis because the way the salary cap was going to be going into free agency is that St. Louis was going to have enough money to give Pietrangelo that long-term deal. Yeah. And I think Pietrangelo really doesn't want to go anywhere else. I think he
I don't think
wants
so
to be
either.
in St. Louis. He's been the captain since David Backes left, and he brought them a Stanley Cup. Who else? What other captain in Blues history can say that they did that?
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's things like that. But now because of this financial situation for so many teams, I would be shocked if anybody got something that was like $5 million or $6 million. I'd say that is a huge amount that you're giving with so much unknown for the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be the strangest free agency class we've seen in a very, very long time.
And that's the other interesting aspect of like having the draft in 19 days as we sit from today.
The lottery.
The lottery is that like there's so much unknown. Like it's so crazy to think.
It's also, if you go back to that, it's funny how the NHL is like you kind of said, punishing the bottom 7 teams with just nothing. Like nothing to sell except for we're not playing hockey for the foreseeable future, and we don't have prospects to sell, right?
Nope.
So the only thing the NHL is giving those bottom 7 teams to sell is this draft lottery that's happening on the 26th of June. But it doesn't really mean shit because it could go all haywire and a play-in team could win the first, second, or third pick, and it's just a shit show. And in reality, because they're doing it before the play-in round, that's why it's so shitty. But yet, like you said, this is the only glimmer of hope for the bottom 7 teams until next season, aside from the actual entry draft. And it's so NHL to do it like this, where you're like, you could just wait a month till the play-ins are over, basically.
Right.
And just do the draft lottery
like,
then. And it'd be legit. You'd be like, oh, this team missed they just missed the playoffs. It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like they're putting it at risk of like an uproar of like, because what if Montreal or whatever is going to win this pick, and it's like
somehow like
what if all 3 picks
knocked out of the first round and they get the first overall pick? All hell will break loose.
Yeah,
because it will be like, see, this is what we were trying to tell you by saying you are punishing all the teams that didn't make it and can't even play. And now you're giving a team that did play a consolation in, you get the first overall pick.
It's another one of those things, too. It's another one of those things, too, that just goes to the draft lottery system as a whole. I do like the fact that the draft lottery exists, so you can't just sell the farm like Buffalo did in the McDavid draft when they got Eichel, right? They literally didn't even try to win hockey games.
They didn't even try to look like they were winning hockey
like
games.
they were an awful team. We can talk about the Colorado Avalanche, but like Nathan McKinnon was still here. There was like Landeskog. There was hockey players here. Like there was NHL studs on this roster, and the Avs were just bad. Detroit this year. There's NHL players. This is what 25 years of success looks like on the back end. They're just bad.
Right.
It's not their fault. They didn't trade everything. The Buffalo Sabres traded everything to get Connor McDavid. I agree that the draft lottery system exists, so that teams that do that don't just automatically get a guy like Connor McDavid. I agree. However, like you said, thankfully the percentages haven't fallen this way, but like every team that misses the playoffs has a shot at first overall. And I'm not sure if that's the right move, because hypothetically your team, like right now, Winnipeg could lose to Calgary. They were basically tied for that last playoff spot. They have a shot at the first overall pick. I don't think a team like that should have a shot at first overall. Yeah, right? And this is what we're bleeding into, right? With the 8 teams that do end up losing in the play-in round, they have a shot. I do think like Montreal and Arizona and Chicago, they deserve a shot.
Right.
Right?
That's fair.
Right? Like
that's fair. That's fair because they were already not, if you look at it from the regular like top 16, they weren't there. They were not in the top. They weren't in the top 8 in their situation. So
and they weren't even close, right?
Right. For them, you could say, okay, fair enough, like them. But if it's somebody like Pittsburgh
or Toronto or
in Edmonton that gets the first overall pick, where we already knew that they were probably going to be in the playoffs no matter what.
Yep.
Now that they have this chance, it's like that's legitimately unfair to the 7 teams that knew for about 3+ months that they were not going to make the playoffs.
Right? So it's just the draft lottery as a whole is kind of weird. The fact that it goes up the chain like that, because it's a whole issue of like, why do you deserve a shot at the first overall pick?
Mhm.
If you finish 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and are pushing for the playoffs, if you miss, why do you deserve a shot at the first overall pick?
Exactly.
But at the same time, how do you have this arbitrary line that's not making the playoffs below that where it's like, this team does deserve it? Like, unless it's a floating number where it's like, okay, this team was 10 points out at the end of the year. Maybe they deserve a shot at the first overall pick, right? But then it's a case of like, do you put like a positional number on that, or do you put like a floating, like, oh, this team was competing? Because if you do the floating one, then you're going to look at teams in the last 5 games of the season that are 6 points out, say, where it's very unlikely, unless you win out, that you're gonna make the playoffs. So then do they just lose out to fall into that, oh, I can get first overall pick, right? Like, this is why the NHL has such a problem with the draft lottery system as a whole, because it's not black and white. You can't simply put just everyone in it, and you can't also just make it up, because then a team that's fringe is like, well, what the fuck? The 11th place team had a shot last year, where this year we're 11th, and we're not going to get a shot. This bullshit. And it's it's so hard, but at the same time, it's like, man, does a team like Winnipeg, just hypothetically right now, as the season stands, they are out but barely. Do they have a reasonable expectation to need the first overall pick or a shot at it? No, I don't think so. Yes, they.
Pick.
Yeah,
Even
and like,
yes,
under normal circumstances, that's only like a 1% shot, so it's barely a shot, but it's still a legitimate shot. Like, you have balls in the lottery, and it's just like, it's weird. And when you're a team that's in that lottery, Avs can say the same thing from before, or even last year, where they had Ottawa's pick and they had the best shot at winning basically first overall, and they didn't. They ended up being 4th, getting Bowen Byram, arguably like one of the better picks in that draft. All this stuff, right? Or sorry, not Bowen Byram. This was the Makar pick, I think, right? Makar was the 4th. Yeah, the 4th overall one. Sorry, we talked about Bowen Byram earlier and got all jumbled up. But like when you're in that like really bottom tier of the draft lottery, where you do have arguably the greatest shot at winning, you start looking at the other teams that have like minuscule chances, and you're like, why do they even have a minuscule shot? Like, why is that even a thing? And then this year, because it's just extra fucked up, it's just like, oh, the Ottawa Senators, because they have 2 shots at the draft lottery, have the highest chance of getting first overall. But then the second highest chance is the play-in teams to get first overall. And you're just like, what the fuck, guys? Like, why is this a thing?
If you are a Senators fan, you are really scared, because you have 2 chances with San Jose's pick and your own to get a top 3 pick, even get the first overall pick. But you also know that there is a really, really bad chance that a team that just was in the play-in round could jump you and get a high pick, and you're sitting there like, so we sucked. We didn't do that well.
Like,
we got multiple chances, and we still didn't get anything.
Like, they could legitimately be the 4 or 5 pick.
Right.
With those 2 picks.
I said before on another podcast that the best case scenario for a team like Ottawa would be 1st, 2nd, and like 4th. Because if it's a top 3 with the Islanders pick, Islanders get to keep it.
Yeah, right.
But that would be their best case scenario. I think like the worst case would be something like 4, 5,
and like 12?
and like 15. Yeah, like 12. Like, so we don't get a top 3 pick, but Winnipeg or Calgary or Pittsburgh gets to jump us like 15 freaking spots, and they get the top pick. That's awesome. Like, and we saw that one time recently. I think it was Chicago, either last year or a couple years ago, where they were like number 14 in the lottery, and they jumped to number 3.
Yeah, wasn't it Carolina that jumped about a lot last year? I think
they jumped like 8 spots.
Yeah, they were like 9 to 2.
And I'm like, I said, if you don't think that this is a possibility that a playing team could get a top 3 pick, then you haven't been watching the lottery.
Yeah. Dude, we're playing numbers. It's a very good possibility. Like,
like they say 3%, and I go,
Yeah.
At times, you could say it's like 75%.
Yeah,
Like my expectation is that one of those playing teams is going to get a top 3 pick.
Yeah, each individual team's 3%, but as a whole, they're 24.5%. Sweet.
Right.
Yeah, and like,
it's awesome.
yeah, they're just setting themselves up for that uproar. It's probably gonna happen. Like, I feel like we all have that same kind of inkling. It's like something shitty's gonna happen.
And it's
here.
just like if they win,
with Gary Bettman that he's gonna let this happen. He's gonna let something really happen.
This wouldn't even be an issue if the draft lottery was just after the play-in round.
Right. I feel like it would be better off that way.
No, that makes
it's
sense.
like that's what we've kind of said. It's like, why rush it? Why are we rushing this?
Why rush it so that a team like New Jersey, LA, Detroit, whatever, Ottawa can sell the fact that they maybe won the first overall pick? Like what is that going to accomplish?
Right. We can't. I know from the Devils' standpoint, they can't sell that again. They can't sell oh, we got the first overall pick. It would just be like,
yeah, what'd you do with the last one?
Last year. And the same thing 2 seasons ago. You are not selling us on anything new. Yeah. And I'm going to get a call from about 15 different ticket people and saying, are you coming to the draft lottery? No, because we've done this before and I'm tired of it.
Right? Yeah. And it's just like, and then like you said earlier, it's like, okay, you try and sell that you got the first, second, third pick, whatever. Go for it. Guess what? That guy's not going to play hockey for 5 more months at minimum.
Right.
Sweet. Hooray.
Awesome.
Get excited.
Right. It's like, and we'll spend 3 months going, all right, who's going to be the first overall pick? And you know what? Like, some people even said, it may not be Lafreniere. It might just, because of how this year has been going, it could be someone completely random it could be Askarov, the goaltender from Russia, that could somehow be the first overall pick. And we're just like, yeah, you know what? The way this 2020 has been going, that should not surprise anybody.
Yeah,
it just,
nothing should surprise you, right? And it's just
I expect, this is going to sound crazy, but I actually expect 2 teams from the play-in to actually get a top 3 pick. I expect 2. Like, that's how bad I'm worried about it. Like, luckily for me, we have like the 6th best odds. So our chances are pretty slim. We have like 7% chance. If we don't get it, I don't think any Devils fan is going to sit there and say,
wow, this is bullshit.
Rigged.
Oh, this is bullshit. It's like, you know what? We've been there and done that. We have stressed out long enough about somehow getting the first overall pick. But if it's a play-in team, oh, we're going to be pissed.
Yeah. It's just so NHL.
Look at Jack Eichel in Buffalo. He literally just said, like last week or 2 weeks ago, he's sick and tired of losing. It's been 5 years. Now they have a chance to maybe get a player that could help Jack Eichel, but they could also get screwed, move back in the draft, and have a play-in team jump them and get a top pick. At that point, Eichel should just be like, either I'm retiring from hockey because I can't take this crap no more, or I want out of Buffalo. Yeah. Like, if somebody is going to get pissed off. Someone's going to get screwed in this draft lottery. I can almost guarantee it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Which, I mean, but again, to put that in perspective, somebody almost gets screwed every time.
That's
right?
True. But this year is going to be like doubly screwed, like you mentioned.
It's going to feel a lot worse.
The Makar draft, the Avs ended up 4th, right? Like, after one of the worst seasons ever.
Right.
Yeah, in history.
They ended up 4th. But then, look at the draft. Makar is arguably the best player in that draft. Sweet.
Right. No, I mean, that was the thing. Like, everybody was saying, oh, I can't believe Colorado. Like, because Colorado, we kept saying, like, okay, they're probably going to get the first overall pick. They had such a crappy season. And they dropped out of the top 3. So everybody started saying, well, now they're just going to suck even more. And some people actually forget that Makar was that pick at number 4.
Right.
Had they gotten the first overall pick, I'm pretty sure they don't draft Makar number 1 overall.
Yeah, right.
They probably draft Nico or Nolan Patrick. In that
right. And you look at Yakupov's draft, right? Like, everybody shits on the Oilers because it's the Oilers and it's fun because they've had 4 first overall picks.
Yeah.
But that draft was awful.
Yeah.
That draft was awful. Like, Yakupov was, and don't lie to yourself, Yakupov was the consensus number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every team that had first overall would have took Yakupov.
Probably.
Now, maybe it was the Oilers system that screwed him up. Maybe. Or maybe he just sucks.
There's a 99.9% chance that's the case.
Maybe. I mean, we're going to joke
Just look at the amount of players that have come through Edmonton that either A, are not playing in the NHL anymore, or B, doing well somewhere else.
Doing well somewhere else after getting traded for 10 cents on the dollar because they were shitty in Edmonton. 100%. Devin
Or how
Dubnyk,
about getting
right?
traded 1-for-1? How about that?
1 for 1. Hey, Adam Larson's pretty good in Edmonton.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
what I've heard.
But right, like that draft, like there's not really a player from the top 5 in that draft that was like that's turned out star power, right? That was just not a good draft.
No.
And at the same, and like this is supposed to be a really good draft, but you don't know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
No. You don't know until like 2 or 3 years after that draft happened.
Yeah.
Like you just said, would it surprise you if the 2020 draft class was hot shit in 5 years?
No,
because this year is just
every
ridiculous.
year it could be that way. It could be like that every single year.
Right.
Every single year we could be having shitty draft class.
You just got to do the best you can with the pick you're given. So that's the thing, right? Like, what can a team possibly sell with the draft lottery results when you can get a guy like Cale Makar at 4?
Right.
Like, yeah, you can sell hope, but it doesn't mean shit. Nolan Patrick can be there.
Especially hope for 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like
the player. First of all, the player has to have some form of talent. There's no question about that. But then the next part of it, in order for the player to maximize his full potential, is to be put into a system and an organization that is going to help him maximize said potential. So for Makar, he didn't jump right away with Colorado. He jumped in the middle of the playoffs, which I thought was actually one of the smartest moves I have ever seen because he made an immediate impact. He clearly felt comfortable being with that team in the system that they play in. And this year, he's just a dominant, young defenseman. Why? Part of that has to do with the structure that the Colorado Avalanche and Joe Sakic have developed in Colorado the last handful of years.
Yeah.
So you have that. And then you have something like, Nail Yakupov, and you'd say, well, I think it wasn't just because maybe Yakupov didn't have the skill set for the NHL, which, I mean, at times it looked like he did, but it was also Edmonton. And we know Edmonton to not develop their players that well. I mean,
unless they're handed a gold satchel like McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah.
They don't develop shit.
It's like how many opportunities is one franchise going to get players that they really don't need to develop at all and just literally let them play the way that they can play before you really have to start building a team around them, because Edmonton does have a solid team. And yes, they could definitely make a run like anybody else in the postseason. But if you're really going to rely on only 2 players, especially when you get in the playoffs, you're going to end up being that way. But with any draft class, the players that you take, you have to develop them correctly and let them maximize their potential. Like one guy on the Devils that I use is Jesper Bratt. Jesper Bratt was a 6th round pick. A 6th round pick a couple of years ago, and he is arguably one of the top wingers on the Devils. Honestly.
And again, right, the New Jersey Devils system saw what was wrong with Jesper Bratt and got him help and fixed him, and he went on a tear last year.
Right, and look at Pavel Zacha. Everybody wants to crap on the Devils because we drafted Zacha over Matt Barzal. First of all, nobody thought Matt Barzal was going to be as good as he actually is. Now, that's partially because of the system that he and the organization that he plays for. Good job by the Islanders. They didn't screw it up. With Pavel Zacha, it's taken him longer because I think the expectations on him originally were too high. And like you mentioned before, Tyler, once the Devils figured out what was wrong with Zacha and what he needed to improve on, he actually had his best season of his career and really improved this season. And when they allowed him to just play hockey, he contributed in many different ways that people don't even notice that much, like on the PK and making solid passes to set up other guys. It's different things like that. So not every guy that is a top 10 pick is going to be a star, but sometimes they take a little bit longer to develop. Even a guy like Michael McLeod, who I mention all the time because the dude is 20 years old and they drafted him 3 years ago and people are like, he can't score a goal. Why is that? Well, he's doing so many other things that are well, but you wouldn't freaking notice that because everybody wants to see him score 87 goals a season.
Hey, Avs fans. Does that sound like anyone on the Avs?
Oh, right.
Tyson? I can think of 2. Tyson Jost, and the second being a guy that we reap the benefits of said thought process in Chuchi.
Yeah.
2 guys that both have been dealt that same kind of hand where the development doesn't match the expectation, and people just want to freaking run away and trade him away. Nichushkin went back to Russia. The Avs are now banking on, or are now reaping the rewards of bringing him back from Russia, and he's crushing.
Right.
I love you. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows we love Chuchi. Love him. And Tyson Jost was the target of trade request after trade request after trade request when it came to deadline time. And he's 22 or 23. Like he's a first round pick, but hey, just relax. Like not everybody who's drafted in the first or second round is just going to be an automatic stud. Like they develop.
And there are guys that need a couple of years to just, whether it's playing in the minors or going back to juniors and just allowing them to get more mature, as a person and as a hockey player. Like the way that the Devils have handled our top prospect in Ty Smith. How have we handled him? We've literally let him play in juniors so much that he's arguably the best player in the OHL. And that includes forwards because he's just older than everybody. Yeah. And he's had a lot more success. Now he's going to either come to the big club or he's going to play down in the minors. Either way, they're taking his approach very slowly because they understand that he has a huge amount of talent and can become a top defenseman on this team. You just have to let him develop naturally instead of trying to force him to, be this guy that everybody wants to see. And no disrespect to this player, because let me be honest, I really love Matt Duchene, like I do. I personally feel like the Avs tried to force more out of him than maybe like early on than they probably should have at times.
Maybe.
And I think that's part of the reason why he got fed up. I think that was one of the reasons he got fed up with being in Colorado. But that was somebody that I think if you had just allowed him to play the game naturally, I think he would have done even more than he actually did. And the biggest example of this, other than the guys you mentioned to me, is two guys. It's Landeskog and McKinnon. Because both of them have developed into not just stars, but big-time stars that contribute on a game-to-game basis. I mean, Landeskog's been there his whole career. So is McKinnon. They've developed under that system, and as a result, they have flourished. Now, unfortunately, with Landeskog, it's a little bit more difficult because of injuries, but he's still flourished many times.
Oh, yeah.
And another guy that I like that really surprised me last year was Philip Grubauer, especially in the playoffs. I said, holy crap, like where did he – because I know he was in Washington, and then what, did he sign as a free agent in Colorado?
They traded for Grubauer kind of before the expansion draft to Vegas.
Okay,
so Vegas would have took Grubauer in that draft, so Washington ditched him.
Right. So and Colorado is reaping the benefits of acquiring Philip Grubauer because
I don't know. Some of our fan base doesn't think he's very good.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Is Philip Grubauer a top 5 goalie in the league? Like, no, but he's a playoff goaltender. Once you get in the postseason, especially this year, he's going to be locked and loaded. He proved that last year, especially when I watched him in the series against San Jose. Even though they didn't win it, how many times did Philip Grubauer just rob Logan Couture of getting an easy goal by just literally throwing his stick out and making an unbelievable save, pissing me off to no end. Because I can't tell you the amount of times Philip Grubauer made me want to punch a hole in the wall watching him play last year. It just made me to say, I was like, this guy just does not give up simple goals. Like you see a rebound. Okay, it's going to go in. Nope. Somehow he threw his leg out and it just didn't go in. Sick.
I'm glad you're saying that. I'm glad you're saying that right now.
It definitely feels like we're very far removed from that playoff run just purely because of the fact that this season he's had injury troubles, but then Francouz has been around and just the arguments from November on, it seemed like about Grubauer where maybe he's not the number one guy, maybe it should be Francouz, maybe we have a goalie battle, blah 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 blah. But I defended him on numerous episodes after the Avs lost or whatever. He let in 4 or 5 goals. Mm-hmm. How many times did Grubauer let in a goal where it was just straight up the Avs defense or the Avs offensive players playing defense that just didn't cover someone or whatever? Mm-hmm. It's just, or the freaking 4 or 5 layer screens that he had to deal with. It's just you look at a lot of Grubauer goals against and you're like, man, what's he supposed to do? Be 6'6" like Ben Bishop? That's the only chance he had.
Right. No,
Like,
I mean,
yeah,
you're absolutely
maybe
right.
he's not the biggest guy in the league, obviously, but he fucking certainly moves around and tries to be.
Exactly. And he's one of the more, I would say he's one of the more agile goaltenders because
For sure.
he's not the biggest. He's a lot quicker when it comes to, going from post to post. As a result, he's made saves that some other goaltenders have not. I played goaltender for a couple of years, so I feel that I have a relatively good understanding of the position. There are times where you're just going to give up a goal and everybody wants to immediately cuss out the goaltender when if you look at it from like a specific, you'd say, okay, well, it was deflected. I'm sorry. How many times is a goaltender still going to make the save if it got deflected?
Yeah.
Or, oh, it hit off of the defenseman and in. How exactly are we blaming the goaltender? If a player on the other team gets a breakaway, is it immediately the goaltender's fault that the guy is coming down on a breakaway? No. Are there times when the defense just flat out lets somebody walk into the slot and does not make a move?
Zadorov.
Yeah.
And now I think that was something I noticed watching them play San Jose in the second round last year, particularly with Logan Couture. I don't know why they kept allowing him to be that wide open in so many different parts. He would just literally stand right next to Grubauer, and it's like, there's nobody within 6 feet. They were practicing social distancing before social distancing was cool, where Logan Couture was 6 feet apart from all of the other defenders on the Avalanche, and he was getting tip pucks, and he was finding the back of the net consistently. It's like, how long do you allow that to happen before you make a change? And then after a while, as a goaltender, you say to yourself, well, I can't literally make every save. And like you said, Todd, it's like, I'm not 6'6". I'm not Ben Bishop, where I could just throw my body out, and most of the time I'm going to block it just because I'm that massive.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week with the Habs guys. Jeez, my brain is everything's mush. We talked about it like when we look at the Avs team. I don't think goaltending is the strength of the Avs, just because the offense is led by McKinnon. Strength. The defense, especially the offensive side of the defense, is led by Makar. The defensive side sometimes is led by Makar too. I think the weakest position, or like just the weakest part of the Avs as a whole, has to be the goaltending. But I'm not saying it's weak. I'm just saying it's average or maybe a little above average. But it's not Carey Price. It's not Ben Bishop. It's not
Right.
Jonathan Quick of the playoff or the cup runs, right? Like Grubauer could be that 100%, right? It's just like any.
Yeah, we don't know yet, right?
It's just like any Stanley Cup run. Generally, the goalie just goes off.
Right.
But I'm also not like I can't put him in the category of being top 5 in the league, just like you said, right? Like you can't. But at the same time, could he play like that in the playoffs? Hell yeah.
The playoffs are made for goaltenders. The
Yeah.
goaltenders, that's when they shine the brightest, because a lot of the time throughout the regular season, goaltenders are tending to have 4, 5, 6 bad games. They give up just a bunch of goals, and they look like garbage. Once you get into the playoffs and you're in that mode of being super focused, a lot of the time the goaltender is going to beat out guys when it comes to performing at a high level. And
part of the reason of that too, right, is you look at a hockey game in general, right? Generally speaking, like your McKinnons, your Crosbys, your McDavids are going to get canceled out by the other team's top top defensive forward line, plus their top defensive pairs, right? And generally speaking, like your top 6s cancel each other out. There's nobody in the game that can cancel a goalie out. Period.
absolutely right. I agree.
Right?
No, I don't.
The only people that cancel the goalie out is their own teammates being
Right.
idiots.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, I see what you mean.
Right?
Yeah. Or Kreider.
Or Kreider, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you
And
cancel out a goalie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look,
Oh,
he'll
shit.
he'll get an opportunity. It wouldn't surprise me if he tried to go after. What are they playing? Carolina. Yeah, he'll definitely try to go after Mrazek.
They don't need him. They don't.
But
Carolina
I will
doesn't need
also say
Mrazek. They can
I
go
will
with
also
David
say
Ayers.
this: for even a team like Colorado, you don't need to have 2 star-studded goaltenders backing, between the pipes. If you have 2 solid goaltenders, like I think Colorado does, you're fine, because the way the league has shaped the last couple of years is that it's no longer about having 1 good goaltender. You need to have 2. You need to have 2 guys that it doesn't matter who you plug in. The team's going to be confident that you have them in net and you're going to go win. And you saw that even the year before when it was, Vasilevsky and Louis Domingue in net for Tampa, and Louis Domingue had one of the greatest seasons record-wise for a backup goaltender when he went 21-2-0 in his 25 starts. I mean, that's incredible. But you feel confident, and I know that's part of it has to do with the team he's playing around, but still, you got to make saves and you got to win games. So sure. Colorado is in one of those situations, just like a lot of teams, where they could make a long run in this postseason with no fans, no other outside noise, just pure focus of going back to playing hockey that you used to play on the ponds or that you played, when you were a little kid when there weren't that many people in the stands. You just kind of go back to that, and it's just back to playing the basic game. And I think once we get into a playoff mode, and especially with goaltenders, they get going, we're going to start to see some hockey games that we were accustomed to seeing in the playoffs. Yeah. I think we'll definitely get some games where the goaltender is just going to steal the show. And I think we'll see that with what Pittsburgh is worried about with Carey Price stealing them a couple games. It wouldn't shock me at all if Carey Price, being the goaltender that he is, in a short series like that, would steal a couple games.
Yeah,
definitely. And
we talked about that a lot.
Again, the biggest question mark going into this playoff format, this situation, this everything, the restart of the NHL, all that, who can get their game going and get on the peak performance of their game the fastest is probably going to be the team that wins the cup.
Yeah,
I agree. Can't argue that.
Right. Yeah. And yes, you can say that's just a form of getting hot, but it's just so different. Like I said earlier, it's just a case of, like, normally speaking, the team that wins the cup is who gets hottest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that this year isn't about getting hot; it's about getting ready to go. Right? Yeah. It's a similar thing, but it's going to be so much harder to achieve this year.
Right. It's who is going to be the most prepared when we get back to playing hockey again.
Which
whoever
hopefully Jared Bednar was right and said when he said his team was ready to go in probably 2 weeks. Back in April.
Yeah, I mean
he feels pretty confident about the team that he has. So, again, if that team is Colorado, then Colorado's going to go win the cup, because they're, even with the training camps that these teams are going to get, it's not until they actually get on the ice and they start playing against someone else that they're really going to get their game back together. They're going to get their legs back under them, and they'll get back into somewhat of a routine. And whoever's the quickest to get back to that is going to have the most success and is going to make the longest run.
For sure.
Would it surprise me if it was one of the teams in the play-in round? Not as much, because even though the teams who are playing for, the seeds are also going to be playing as well, they might not play as hard because they want to keep themselves fresh for when they start the playoffs. For another team, we're fighting for our playoff lives right from day one.
I think it's also going to help too the fact that you're gonna, like, the teams in the playoff or the play-in rounds are going to have the ability to play the same team, which you're gonna get ready to roll in that same playoff format where you're playing the same team over and over again. You're adjusting to the same team, where the teams in the play-in rounds, it's going to feel more exhibition-like because of the fact that they're playing separate, like, different teams every time. You can't adjust, like, we saw this yesterday, we're going to adjust, we're going to do this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's going to give teams a little leg up in the play-in round. That being said, I think the teams in the top four in each conference are going to be fine. They deserve to be there, right? Like, in the West, it's St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, and why can't I think of the Pacific representative? Jeez.
Pacific is Vegas, Edmonton, Calgary?
Yeah, I think it's Vegas. It's Vegas.
I think that's it. Because LA, Anaheim, and San Jose are not in it.
Yeah, so, like, you're looking, like, your top four is looking St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, Vegas. Like, those teams deserve to be there. I don't see it being an issue. Like, another thing with it too, right, is the fact that they're all really good teams.
Right.
For the various reasons, right? St. Louis is the cup, like, defending cup champs. Like, they're still a very good team. Dallas, it's the Ben Bishop show, right? As Avs fans, we know, like, the amount of times, the 3 games, I think, or 4 games they played this year, I think the Avs scored 2 goals, right? And it's just like, this is, like, Ben Bishop is a cheat code. And if he is on his game, he is going to be terrifying.
out of all the players in the league, like he's one of my top guys, and I'm like, I really wish he wins a cup because I feel like he really deserves it considering what he's done.
Yeah.
Like he's had to battle injuries so many times. He had to carry Tampa, and I'm going to be very honest with you. When they made the finals in 2015, he was a big reason they were there in the first place.
Yeah.
And then he gets hurt in the finals, and then that ended his time in Tampa because Vasilevsky came in, and all of a sudden everybody was like, well, forget Ben Bishop. He goes to Dallas, and if it wasn't for Pat Maroon scoring that goal in Game 7, Dallas might have gone to the conference finals, and who knows, maybe they go to the Stanley Cup finals and beat Boston in 7. Like, who knows?
And then Vegas is Vegas, right? Like,
yeah,
Vegas is better than, in theory, on paper, they're better than they were when they went to the Cup final to begin with, right?
They're better than they were. They are a better team than they were last year.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Right. So it's just like the top 4 in the West is great. The top 4 in the East is pretty solid. Assuming like right, Boston, Tampa, just ridiculous, and then you got Washington, Philly, and you're just, like the fact that Philly's in the top 4 in the West,
you're right,
or in
right.
the East is hilarious to me. Like
no,
hilarious.
It's so funny because it's like you would have thought in the 2014 playoff, okay, Philly probably would be having to fight for their playoff life. No, it's actually Pittsburgh that has to do it,
right?
And Philly's like, all right, sick. We don't have to worry about that. Like, let's just
again, right? Like I think the top 4s are fine because they're for the majority they're really good teams. They'll figure it out. But again, Tampa Bay has shown that they might not be as ready to go as always. And then Philly's Philly, which like one day of the week Philly's really good, the next day of the week they're not.
Well,
they've been like that forever.
The biggest question, like it is every year, and I've talked to Flyers fans, is their goaltending going to be good enough for them to make that run?
Yeah.
So Carter Hart is now technically their future. Is Carter Hart ready to go? Is he going to be another, Leighton? Is he going to be another, Brian Boucher, where like he shows promise and then like when it matters most, he just gives up 7 goals a game? Because I can't tell you the amount of years it's been since Phillies, didn't complain about the fact that their goaltending was ridiculous, because they've always had solid wingers, a solid forward, solid defense, but they would always lose in the playoffs primarily because their goaltending couldn't stop a puck at all. They would just struggle.
It's only game. Why you have to be mad?
Yeah.
It's only game.
Right? So it's again, we've said it a million times and we'll say it a million times more. I can't wait. I cannot wait. The format's fine. Like the format is getting us back to playing hockey. It may not be ideal. It was never going to be ideal.
Right. But
we're going to deal with what we got. I hope the Avs crush, and it is what it is.
And I will say this, that I approve of this more than I approve of what the NBA is doing, where they're like, oh, we're going to play 8 regular season games.
But not the whole league.
But not the whole league. Like, oh, we'll have 13 teams in the West, but only 9 in the East, so we can make it 22. And I'm like,
it's so
you know
messed up.
Like, I get it. I know that the NBA means well, but like they could have spent a little bit more time figuring that out. Or they could have looked at the NHL and said, maybe we should try to do something like that. Like,
there was rumors that it was going to be like March Madness bracket style, like just one win and you're in kind of thing.
Right. And as a Brooklyn Nets fan, they said like, oh, they're playing the Lakers in round 1. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? We'll play the Lakers round 1. The hell do we got to lose?
That's fair.
We win 1 game in that series, it's an accomplishment in itself. So there we go.
Yeah, right. So it's just I think the NHL is looking at the best possible option that have been approved, and like you said, the NBA's option is very odd. It's just. When we get right down to it, like the end of the play-in round is going to tell you whether or not it was a mistake, right? Like you said, upsets are probably going to happen. There's a very high chance it's going to happen. They just need to not be the 12 seeds for this to just be a complete gong show,
right? All we gotta hope for,
we said it, I think last week and the week before, the teams that were actively trying to be in the playoffs, like. Arizona, yes, maybe they weren't having a great season, but they traded for Taylor Hall. They were trying. If they upset a team, I'm not upset. I'm not.
No.
It's a team like Montreal who was trading away the farm and trading away everything, that if they win a round, it's just like, oh my God. They weren't even trying to be in.
This is the thing that I hope.
And now they're going to make this long run and piss off
And
everybody.
now they're going to make Pittsburgh have a shot at first overall. Perfect.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, the hope that I have is that we have some upsets. None of the playing teams get a top 3 pick, and that's it. Like, we just move on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
if
then
we get to that point, I'll say, okay, it wasn't a mistake. It's going to work out. It's fine. But if we have upsets and then like one or God forbid 2 teams in the play-in get a top 3 pick, I would go to my grave saying that was the dumbest decision that we could have ever made as a hockey community.
And all it is fucking statistics that nobody likes.
And here's the other thing that's bad about the fact that the lottery is happening before we even have a play-in is that once we know, especially if it's 1 or 2 teams playing, you don't think that some teams may just decide to not win in order to get that pick?
No.
You don't think it would happen? Because it would happen.
Yeah.
Like,
possible.
thankfully,
the NBA is not doing the lottery until after they do the 8 games and they do all this other stuff because they're like, we are not trying to make people tank here. We're trying to make this as fair as possible.
Thankfully, the phase 2, like as finicky and ridiculous as it is, if it was strictly a case of like the way the NHL laid it out first, where it was team A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
right?
If that was like, okay, team A is this plan, team B, like team A is the loser of plan A, team B is the loser of plan B. Like if it was straight up like you knew which team you would be if you lost, and the phase 2 lottery drafting didn't exist, as gimmicky as it is, then you would really see that tanking question mark for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think
thankfully the secondary fit, like the phase 2 draft lottery, is there, but the whole situation is gone if you just wait.
Right. We don't have to. We're not sitting here complaining and talking about it and speculating that Pittsburgh or Edmonton is going to get the number 1 overall pick because of the stupid lottery. It's like
they just won. It's fine. We don't have to think about it.
All right, cool. Like I don't like let's just drop it. Like these teams, they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Fine. Like let's move on. But like for any team or any fan of the 7 teams that are not in it, that know that for the next 6 months they will have nothing to look forward to until December. If they get screwed again by this lottery, then shit's gonna really, really hit the fan.
You know what?
There are going to be protests for that.
Yeah.
There are going to be people like doing that crap.
You know what it is? We've joked about how, like, said whatever about how Detroit deserves where they're at because they had 25 years of straight playoff success.
Yes.
This is just the ultimate payback. This is happening because of them. Because they're getting punished in one foul swoop.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you guys had 25 years of success. This is the ultimate way we can screw you over for 6 months for being this bad because you were so good for so long.
Right. We'll screw you over by, even though you have the highest odds, you're not getting the first overall. Like,
you're not getting it, and you're going to fume for 6 months over it.
The worst they can move down is like 4, right?
Yeah, I think the 4. Yeah.
That would be like, for everyone else, that would be best case. They drop out of the top 3, and it's like, 2 teams that, played the play-in round, and then like...
They're just going to sit there and fume for 6 months. Just
be like, yeah, we had this coming. Be like, and so just be like, this is for 1998. This is for 2002. This is for Mike Vernon beating the crap out of Patrick Waugh. This is for everything else. Like, it would just be like for Avs.
Everything you enjoyed, this is for that.
Everything you know and love has been destroyed, and this is what you get now. So I mean, I would laugh. Like, I would laugh because Red Wings fans would be like, we suffered the worst season in franchise history, and we don't even have a top 3 pick.
Yeah.
We're trying. So we're not even trying to be this bad.
Yep.
It's just happening.
But anyway,
unless they keep Jimmy Howard. keep the good times rolling.
Jesus.
That just continues to be a question mark every year. It seems like
He already said that he's coming back. He's like, I'm not retiring for another 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, do you understand where you are in your career?
Why, buddy? Why?
Just putting himself through punishment, man.
But anyway, as per usual, it's been like an hour.
At
hour
least.
and a half almost.
Like we said. What are you gonna talk about? I don't know, stuff for hours. Yeah.
That's when I was working with Shane and Bayou on the Devils. It was the same thing. It was like, all right, well, let's talk about how do you pronounce? Is it Quebec? Is it Quebec? Or how do you pronounce Tyler Sagan's last name? Is it Seguin or is it Sagan? If you listen to those last few episodes, that's literally what we talked about for an hour and a half long.
That's interesting. That's
gotta get your content somewhere.
Wow. Anyway, before we let you go, you want to plug your stuff?
Sure. So again, I'm taking over the Devils podcast. It's now the Devils State of Mind podcast. So if you're a New Jersey Devils fan or a hockey fan, you can check it out. New episode every every Monday. If I'm not mistaken, every Monday now. You can also check out you can check out my sports podcast and YouTube channel called Mofobo. So that's MOFOBO, and then it's just network, and it's either you can listen to the podcast on Anchor or Spotify, or check out the YouTube channel as well to see different topics that I brought up. You can check out my Instagram at NVPQB11 and also my Twitter at THE, as you see right here, THENVPSHOW. And just also we have social media accounts for the Devil State of Mind, an Instagram, a Facebook page, and a Twitter. And we're getting that stuff rolling. And also, I guess I would say last but not least, I have my first book on Amazon called JETS Pain, 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 which is about the pain and suffering of being a New York Jets fan.
Ouch.
So, yeah, exactly. So luckily the Jets have given me enough ammo to put together this book. It's up on Amazon for sale for $19.69. And if you're a Jets fan, you probably figured why I made that specific
question one about your book.
Sure.
What chapter is the butt fumble?
Every one.
Okay. All right.
So,
it should be everyone.
Right. So if you check this out, actually, as you get to check out my room, this is it's right here. This is my book. So it's on Amazon, and you can go check it out, and it's on ebook and also hardcover as well.
That's beautiful.
Sweet, man.
So but yeah, that's as Bayou says, that is my 10-page paragraph of my stuff.
There you go.
Awesome, man.
And thank you guys again, by the way, for having me on. I've had fun as I always do here.
So excited to have you on the network. Finally sounds like someone that's here to stay for the Jersey podcast. It's been a roller coaster over there for the whole season, but 2021 is going to be a better year, right? Hopefully.
Yep. Hopefully a better year for the podcast and also the team.
Yep. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a bunch for joining us, and we will catch you probably in the playing round, maybe for some chats or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, I'll definitely hop on, no doubt.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, man.
I'm always around, so just let me know.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
No problem. We'll talk to you guys later.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Again, thanks to Neil, man. That was a blast. It was long as usual. I hope you enjoyed everything. It was kind of all over the place. Lots of draft lottery talk. But, I mean, really, what can you expect out of the New Jersey Devils, who had a really lame season and
an unfortunate one?
When like he pointed out, when you get a look at the prospect of having no hockey for 6 months and the hockey you did have before and probably after wasn't exactly all that hot and entertaining. I'd be a little bummed too.
Yeah.
Especially with the prospect of a playing team winning the lottery. It's got to be rough. But yeah, again, thanks for tuning in to the Offside by a Mile podcast for the season. Every episode. This is what, 62, Brett?
62 or 63?
62? Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, it's crazy that we
man.
Yeah.
Like I know we
it would have been more.
It would have been more going to two a week, and we kind of cut her down at the end there, but that's a lot of episodes. That is a lot of content, and I'm really happy that everybody enjoyed it, that came and checked us out and stuck around. Hopefully, it's been a blast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we will see you in July. Fingers crossed, nothing goes sideways until then. I want hockey back. I think everybody wants hockey back. Let's see you then. We will see you in July. Fingers crossed. Adios. The biggest thing you can do to support us is by going to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and giving us a 5-star rating. Also, if you're looking to donate to the network, visit the Hockey Podcast Network's Patreon page. All donations go straight to the podcast host. Thanks, and see you next episode.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network on Twitter @HockeyPodNet. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.